Okay, everybody. So I just am doing this to test out again, as I promised. So here goes. Now, basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to give you all a rough idea about data response for those of us who are still struggling. Okay. You all are okay with your data response, but I think what I need to see is that you are scoring in your data response. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. I'm going to put this on slideshow. All right. I'm using May June 2003 paper 2 variant 2. So I've already uploaded this on the Schoology. You can download the paper just for reference so that it's easier for you to cross refer when you're listening to this video. Okay. Now again, it's just more, I have written out the answers for most of the pair questions, but it's just for you to know what you should be doing. Okay. Now, your part A questions generally are calculation questions, right? Now, what you need to do with a calculation question is just make sure, even though when you see your mark scheme, I've told you before, will give you only the finalized answer. Will you get marks for doing the working? No, because it's a 1 mark question. Okay. But we never know because the examiner is getting stricter and stricter as we go along. Cambridge has just released a statement saying that, look, we're going to go back to being how strict we were before COVID. So we never know if in the mark scheme it says no working, therefore we are not going to accept the answer. That's it. Okay, so we don't want to take such risks. Please make sure you get into the habit of doing the working on the paper itself. Okay, calculate the number of people who are living in poverty in Guyana. This is where you're getting your information from. You can tell this to the examiner. The population based on the Guyana fact file, population is this, proportion of population living is this. Okay. Um, yeah, so you see, I put down here the main point which I wanted to drive across was always work out the calculation. So I've done the rough working for you here, and the final answer is 276,500. Okay, and then second question is identify two causes of the decrease in the output of sugar. Now, look for statements in the passage that tells you something. Okay, they will link, they will have some words down there which are very similar, so decrease in sugar and all that. So from the top of, if you look at your, I don't know whether you can see me switching the screen now, but I'm actually looking at um, your paper. Okay, so if you go right from the top after the Guyana fact file, then you have this passage down here. Guyana is the fastest growing economy in the world, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so within this passage, you can see that I've underlined the sentence in 2020 and onwards. Okay, now if you look at the one which I highlighted, the sugar industry was hit by bad weather and falling global demand. Okay, now here, okay, now if you, this I can say because I mean, this is what I would have picked out even without looking at the mark scheme. Um, but if you go on reading through the passage, there are other reasons why you may not be um, harvesting sugar. Okay, in contrast, output of gold and timber, and then you've got oil production in the next passage and in the next paragraph and so on. Now if you see here in the mark scheme, okay, now look at part B. This is what they've written, what I highlighted in blue: bad weather and falling demand. But look at the guidance. Now you all always ask me, what if my answer is not in the what if my answer is not in the mark scheme? What if my answer is not the mark scheme? This is a classic case. They said if more than two causes are given, consider the first three, which means it could be anything which I identified earlier, or it might be something which I didn't spot. You all may have picked out different answers if you have attempted this paper. Okay. Um, So uh, even if your answer is not in the mark scheme, like I always told you, you see, the part B says identify. So if you look at the mark scheme, the moment you say bad weather, I'm supposed to give you 1 mark. The moment you say falling demand, I'm supposed to give you 1 mark. Okay. But always take the effort. Now you see, I've come to the next screen. Take the effort to elaborate. I know it's only 2 marks, but what if your answer is not in the mark scheme? At least if you have justified, we can take it to the lead examiner and say, hey, this is the background and it makes sense. Why not we consider? Okay. So this is how I would write out the answer. This is a written out thing and I wrote this out. And I will start off my answer and see here, I will do this in paragraphs. So I will start off my opening line by saying the passage states that the sugar industry has been hit by bad weather. Okay. Now, then there are two causes, right? Those of you who are doing business studies, you will recognize this format. Okay. It says cause one, elaboration one, cause two, elaboration two. So it's a typical business studies paper one format. Okay. Try to stick to this format, but you don't have to write out. Don't write out cause one, elaboration one. The examiner also will think something wrong with you. Okay. You you paragraph your answers in such a way. Okay, paragraph your answers in such a way that the examiner will they can see the logic of what you're trying to do. Okay, so and I've written this out in a full setting, meaning that if let's say I did not do this cause one elaboration business, right? If I remove this blue and red thing, this is how the passage would look like. The first cause is that sugar industry has been hit by bad weather, and then I explain sugar is an agricultural product and so will be susceptible to weather changes. These are difficult to mitigate. The production process can suffer because of this. Do I need to go into a lot of detail? No. Okay, because I'm just merely justifying to the examiner. Okay, you want to go into more detail, by all means, up to you. Okay, you can, right? um, but what we're trying to do here is we're just trying to safeguard our answers. That's all we're trying to do. Okay, right. So you see the second one, hit by falling global demand, and then I gave my elaboration. You all can take the time to read this on your own and pause the recording and read through. Okay, I'm just merely just um, pointing out what I need you all to do in a data response. Okay. Now, part C, explain how economic growth is measured. So you see, oops, yeah, okay. So this is what I want to highlight in my answer. Okay. Now, pick out wherever you see whatever they've mentioned in your questions, they will make reference in the text. So wherever there's reference in the text, even though your mark scheme may or may not do this, you should pick out the parts of the text where they're making reference. But make sure it's logical. Don't just because you see economic growth is such a it's a concept. It's not just a terminology, it's a concept. So it could be mentioned multiple times in your data response. Don't simply wherever you see economic growth, simply sumbat down there. Don't. Okay. Make sure it is logical. Okay, they're asking you how the growth is measured and they gave you the percentage. There's a 26% thing. So I would start off by telling the examiner the table in the article indicates that Guyana's economy has grown by 26%. And this is actually quite a lot if it is within the space of a year. They did not say so. They just said 2020, 26. So I'm going to assume that within the space of 2019 to 2020, this has happened. Got me? Okay. So if within the space of a year the economy has grown by 26%, quarter, it's more than quarter it has grown. So it's quite, um, excuse me, it's quite rapid. Okay. Um, and there are different ways in which you can measure GDP, but sorry, you can measure economic growth. But since they spoke about GDP here, the one I highlighted in purple, you can actually focus your answer on this. Tell the examiner there are several ways in which you can measure GDP. However, the most commonly used method is, sorry, there are several methods to measure economic growth, but the most common method is to use GDP. Okay. Now, what do you understand from here is that if the country indicates a higher GDP, And remember, what is gross domestic product? It means your output, right? Okay. So I went around the thing and dug into the concept itself. If the output of the country is increased, then you have more. It's understood from here you have more revenue, you have more income. Okay, which helps to indicate that there is going to be more growth, or there has already been more growth. Okay. Now, your part D, explain two reasons why labor mobility may increase in Guyana in the future. Now, this is an explain question. You definitely have to elaborate. Okay, because they said two reasons. Another thing which I wanted to point out in part C, how many methods should you use? If there's more than one, please by all means do it. Okay, but it's a 2 mark question, which means they want one method and they want you to elaborate because it's an explain question. Moment you have an explain, you must have fact elaboration. Okay, which is what you're doing in part D. But part D said two reasons, so you need to have reason explanation. You must have at least two. I would definitely do more than two if I can find that in the paper. Okay. But in part C, they didn't tell you. So that means they're only expecting one. But if there's more than one, please, by all means, elaborate. Tell the examiner because you never know. If your first method is wrong, how do you know? Maybe your second method may be correct. All right. Now, here, two reasons. This is the one. Guyanese government is planning to use some of the revenue it will raise from oil to spend on education and the infrastructure. Okay. So now I've told you all before, whenever Cambridge gives you a concept and they leave it open, take the opportunity. Okay. So here they said labor mobility. In our studies, we know that labor mobility, there are two categories. So you tell the examiner this, there are two categories called occupational and geographical mobility. So what you're doing now, if you see what I've written in blue, is you have, and remember, I've always told you all, where there's a concept, you define. What you have done now is you have defined the concept. Labor mobility, what is it? It is, we can explain it by dividing into two categories. Okay. Um, yeah. So you see, where the passage gives you, or the question gives you no indication, go ahead and exploit this to your advantage. So speak about the concept because they didn't tell you. Okay. So they have given you the window of opportunity to talk. So talk, right? Now, this is where you see what I've done. I've tried to do a format of sorts. Okay. In this case, you had the opportunity to divide into two categories. Some questions may not have, it might be just a singular concept, whereby what you do is you define the concept first. What is occupational mobility? What's geographical mobility? And then why now suddenly you're talking about occupational? So if you see from the passage, the Guyanese government may want to improve education. So that is on. So now what I did was I took that and I said, okay, government wants to spend on education. So when the government spends on education, it provides the people of Guyana with occupational mobility. So I have linked up my concept with the text. I have linked up I've applied. In Cambridge, they not only have knowledge points, they have application points, and they have analysis points, evaluation points. Okay. This is your application point, so to speak. Okay, then you need to justify why are you saying that spending on education makes the Guyanese people more mobile occupationally. Okay, the people will be empowered with skills and knowledge. They will be able to accept various jobs and will not be limited in the scope of work that they can offer. Okay. So this is, remember, I always tell you all that um, uh, I for example myself, um, I'm qualified in law, qualified in economics, qualified in aviation. So at any one point, I can always switch between the industries. It sounds very cocky. I am not. I promise you, I'm not. I'm just telling you this is a concept. Um, just to say that, look, um, now I'm occupationally mobile. I can teach. I can go and be a lawyer. I can go and go back to the aviation industry. Many things that I can do. I can go into the banking industry, right? Why? Because educated in that way. You got me? Okay. So that's why I said it's not limited in the scope of work that the worker, can offer. This offers them a better lifestyle because now you see, if let's say, okay, like for example, if let's say I'm earning 2,000 ringgit as a um, um, baggage handler in the airport, okay, example, then suddenly somebody comes and says, oh, if you come and teach, I'll give you 3,000 ringgit. Okay, then uh, so I jump, obviously. It's one industry to another. Okay. Then, say, for example, if a law firm says, okay, you come and be a clerk in my firm, ours is a big firm, we can give you 3,005. Why not? Jump across. Okay. So it just means that people will open themselves to various jobs, and they will jump industries, or they will jump into different countries or continents. That's geographical mobility, based on what is being offered to them. Okay, we studied this already, right? So now this offers them a better lifestyle and standard of living, because now they can afford better products, they can afford more products. Okay, now the knowledge of this, obviously, if you're going to be paid more, you've got to be working hard for it as well, so they will also be better workers, and this can produce better output, right? So now, the other ones I'll let you read slowly, because this is just to point out the format. I hope you all can see the format. You see, I've taken the concept, I've linked to the passage, and I've justified it, if that makes sense. Okay. Next, part E. Draw a demand and supply diagram. Now, they always have a diagram question. It's either a 4-mark question or 6-mark question. Um, so if you see what is done down here, they want to know if, let's say, the price of real transport decreases, what happens to car? Right? Now, um, see, in the passage, they've already told you what is the relationship here. That is why you will not get marks for it, because you are not identifying. They have already identified for you. Okay, normally I would have thought this is a 6-mark question. I'm looking also why the examiner didn't give you 6. All right. This is the reason, they've already done it for you. Okay. So here, first state the relationship between the two factors, and then you next explain how the variable works. All right. So check which factor the graph is for. So let me go through the thing. Rail and car transports are both alternative forms of transportation, and hence can be regarded as substitutes. So I've shown them why is it called substitutes. Okay, they're both transport systems, they're just different types. You can get from point A to point B. Okay, now how does the variable work? What's your variable here? A decrease in price. Okay, so when the rail transport becomes cheaper, people switch over to this, i.e., the rail transport, because it's an alternative. And when people start switching over to rail, um, there is a fall in demand for car transport, right? Now you got to know. So then figure out which, are they asking you to draw the graph for the rail or asking you to draw the graph for the car? Think. All right, be very careful, because if you identify wrongly, if you start drawing the graph for the rail, then your whole graph is wrong. Okay, bear in mind that if you go through to your mark scheme, you don't get marks for any of these, what I've written here, because why? I told you they already have identified for you. Okay, now this is where you get your marks. Okay, um, and you show that there's a fall in demand for car transport. Okay, so having said all of this, we started off with the top, what are rail and car, and what is your variable? Price is falling for rail. What do you expect to see? People switch over to rail transport as alternative. There's a fall for car transport. Explanation wise, you find that I'm flowing over smoothly to the next part. I said this is reflected in a fall in demand for car transport and a leftward shift from D1 to D2, as shown in figure 1. Can you see at the bottom of the graph, I put figure 1. Okay. Um, the price would fall from P1 to P2, and the quantity would also concomitantly fall from Q1 to Q2. Okay, I've put the arrow there also just in case that the examiner happens to decide they want to award arrows. Okay, so every label must be clear. And please, guys, common mistake that you all were doing in the last exam, you all kept on calling this price and quantity demanded indexes. It's not quantity demanded, it's quantity. Got me? Yeah? Okay. Now, um, all right. Analyze the relationship between GDP per head and internet access. Okay. Now, see the things which I've written here. Look for the words in the passage. Okay. Now, this one, a lot of you have been struggling over this in the last month when we were working on this in class. Okay. You always say so weird, so weird. Okay. You realize they were actually having a format. This is a formatted one. Okay. Now, you look for the words in the same passage. GDP per head, internet access. Okay, it's typically to make life easier for you because it's still IGs. They have they normally use a table. Okay, now stick to the following format. You first tell the examiner what you expect to see. Between GDP per head and internet access, what do you expect to find? What is the relationship between these two things? Okay, then where applicable, not all questions you can do this. What kind of relationship do you see between the two variables? Normally, what they're looking is it a direct relationship or is it an inverse relationship? Okay, then you must tell the examiner why do you think this is the case? Justify. Okay, elaborate or justify. All right, and then in because it's an analyze and because it's a 5 mark question basically, you got to look for evidences to support. One tip is to look for extremities in the question. Okay, and then you give evidence, sorry, and then give evidence for that, and then also look for the contrary, which is the exception. All right, now it seems to be, what I'm noticing is that they seem to be comparing. Where possible, they're comparing. All right, now how do you do this? Here, see, this is the table. See, can you see GDP per head and internet access? Right, they're giving you a few countries, so they've put a nice long title in selected countries, blah blah blah. Okay, now see here, these are the three things which I'm using, and they used in the mark scheme as well. So I'm just following what they've done. Okay, now can you see, following the format which I've written here? See, state the relationship. What kind of relationship? Why is this the case? Evidence to support, evidence for exception. Now here, see the one in blue first. That's the top one. What is the relationship? Where GDP is higher? I mean, common sense will tell you. This is without looking at the graph. What do you think? GDP per head is what? Income, isn't it? So, if where GDP per head is higher, there should be more internet access to people. Okay, so what do you expect to see? It's a positive relationship. GDP higher, internet access higher. GDP lower, internet access lower. Okay, so it's a positive relationship. Why is this the case? Couple of reasons are there. It could be because people have the money to pay for better internet facilities. So that's why you're having a wider internet reach. Okay, more people are able to afford, more people are able to pay for the services. The other thing is because in the text they kept on saying that, oh, the government may invest in infrastructure, government may invest in better internet and all that. They specifically mentioned that. So because of that, you might want to say that, oh, higher GDP per head means that means the person or the firm is earning more income or better income. Therefore, the tax they are paying is also higher, which means the government is getting better tax revenue. All right. So that means the government now has got more money to invest in the infrastructure. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense for you. Now you have done the main framework for them. You now need to show evidence to support what you said, evidence to be an exception to what you said. What is the supporting evidence? So I told you take extremes because this seems to be something they want to do. Okay. Iceland, for example, this one's a very lucky case where you can show a very easy extreme. Iceland, for example, has the highest GDP per head. Correct or not? You see, it's got the highest 66,000 plus almost 67,000 from the countries listed in table 1.1. So I'm redirecting the examiner. Go back to your own table, table 1.1. See there, this is what you wrote for me. Okay. So very important you do this because you tell the examiner, I'm not making stuff up. You said this. I'm pointing it out to you. Right? Okay. Now, after that, so then where's the internet access? Almost everyone in the country. Okay, I didn't write it down, but you should actually. Almost everyone in the country should be 99% has internet access. Okay, so supports in science experiments, you have a hypothesis. This is basically a hypothesis. Okay, so you found evidence to support a hypothesis which says that GDP is higher means we have more internet access. Okay. Now, there's an exception to this program as well. Guyana can be seen as the exception. Do you see that? Okay. Now, in order to show, we cannot say, how do I just say that? Basically, I think what I'm trying to say is that how do you know whether should you compare or should you not compare? Okay. Now, um, you see, how do you tell them that Guyana's GDP is 6,000 plus, and there's 39% people who are accessing the internet. See, Iceland, I didn't compare because I was outright telling the examiner, you look at your entire table, Iceland is the highest. You look at your entire table, it's the highest for GDP, it is highest for population. So I was comparing without actually naming anyone else. But for Guyana, I need to pick somebody else. So in the mark scheme, I think they picked out Morocco. Okay. So they said, look at Guyana and Morocco, the differences. Okay. Why we didn't pick Eritrea? Some of you might say, why not take the lowest GDP? Because that fits the theory. Eritrea has got the lowest GDP per head, I think, yeah, the lowest GDP per head, and also got the lowest population with internet access, 2%. So that fits the theory. High GDP, high internet access, low GDP, low internet access. Okay, but why they pick Guyana and Morocco? Because it's towards the lower part, all right? And here, you can see down here, it says that Guyana has got a higher GDP than Morocco, but it's got a lower population with internet access compared to Morocco. Okay, which is what we have said here. In comparison to Morocco, even though Guyana has a higher GDP, they seem to have lesser internet access, 39% in comparison to Morocco, 64%. Okay. Now, whatever you say, remember I said everything you put down, you must justify. Okay, why the green one got no justification? It's in the top one, the blue. The reason we said in higher GDP, why is it higher internet access? Okay, so since that's supporting evidence, we already gave the rationale for that. No need to write again. Okay, hopefully that comes across clearly. You don't understand, just please message me again. Um, but here, why is it that Guyana has got higher GDP but lower internet access? Okay, terbalik already. Why? Maybe education levels. Maybe it's just that people don't know how to use um, they don't know how to use the internet. Not that they don't want to provide not that the government doesn't want to provide, they do, but they also know that people don't know how to use the internet. So why go and spend so much time, effort, and money on something that people don't know how to use? You got me. Okay, so this is the format for part F. I hope this comes across clearly. And if you look at all your questions, part A is 2, part B is 2, part C is 2, so 2 for 6 already. Then part D is 4, part E is 4. So just now I said 6 plus another 8, 14. 14 plus 5, 19. This is almost, your entire section A is 30 marks. I told you all what, if you want to score, you got to get, your section A, you got to make sure it's about 23, 24 already. You cannot be losing marks. 23, 24 is already risky. Okay. Now this one, discuss. Now part G and part H are discuss questions. So when it is a discuss question, give him a mini introduction, give both sides of the story. However weak it may be, please put down something for the other side, because otherwise there's only a maximum point that we can give you marks. Okay. So put down the two arguments and then give him a conclusion, sort of. Okay. Or you can, if you don't want to give a conclusion, you can say they're both benefits, disadvantages, full stop. Okay. Now, everything I've highlighted here can be used for about discovery of oil for increasing living standards. I did not write it out in full, um, but you can see down here what I'm trying to get at. Okay. First and foremost, you take the main crux of the question, discovery of oil. What is this? This is new resources, your raw materials. Okay. If you want, you can put down a graph. If you want, you can put down a graph just to emphasize and tell the examiner, what are you trying to get at. Okay. PPC shifting outward means what the production possibilities are increasing. Now, you got to link the two factors. In this case, it's a bit difficult without getting into the actual points. So just give a vague one to the examiner, the discovery of oil and living standards. If, worst case scenario, you got nothing else to say, you can come up with something like this. Okay. Discovery of new resources can impact living standards in both a positive and a negative way. Now, as I said just now, with discovery of oil, you might see your PPC shifting outwards, okay, which is greater production possibilities. Now, I like to do this. Remember, we did this in class just before you all left, okay, for study break, not study break, before you all started your exams. I told you all wherever possible, get into this framework, okay, um, where the question opens up the possibility, especially essay questions, and even if you can see in discuss questions also, if you can, please break it down into these categories. Actually, it's only three: individuals, firm, and government. But in this case, we can do the entire country as well. So I'm just mixing and matching. You need not put it in the same category, but of course, don't lie if it is individuals and then you go and categorize it under country or government, right? Okay, so a bit of common sense also lah. Okay. Now, is the discovery of oil likely to increase living standards? You have discovered oil, so likelihood, firms, I might want to talk about firms first, right? Instead of this order, I might want to talk about firms first and say that, look, discovery of oil means more production possibilities. The firms may be making more revenue, which means the firms can expand, the firms can increase in size. Basically, it means opportunities for the firm to invest more. Okay. Now it's easier for me to say in terms of the individual, they benefit because there's more jobs. Okay. Now bring it back. Whatever you do, bring it back to the the core of what does the examiner want to know? Are we increasing living standards or not? So when you have firms, for example, and you say, oh, there's more revenue, you can expand, you can invest. What are you trying to say? The firm will be able to produce. You will see better quality items, more competitive items. Okay, being produced from the firms because they have reinvested, right? So what do you get to see? Reinvestment. What does that mean for living standards? The firm is producing better quality items. So that means in Guyana, you can get good quality items. Living standards is higher. Yes, it increases living standards. Okay. Individuals, more jobs. Um, I don't know why the examiner was crediting so much marks for reduced unemployment. It's the same thing. I mean, but anyways, okay. Sometimes stating the obvious, you get marks. That's why I said don't worry, just write. Okay. Um, so reduced unemployment, fine. Um, you can see down here there's more disposable income. Hmm? Because the person has a job now, right? So there's more disposable income. Okay. How does that increase living standards? Don't leave it there. Bring it back to what the question is asking. How does that increase living standards? You can afford more items. You can afford better items. You may be able to, um, have variety. You see? So that's what we talk about in living standards. Okay, so government having high revenue, what does that mean in terms of living standards? Okay, government can subsidize more goods and services. Maybe government can invest in infrastructure, right? And overall, for the country, you can say that look, there's more GDP, economic growth, and in fact, it is stated in the passage. You can mention to the examiner again that the government is planning to use the tax revenue for more development. Okay, hope this makes sense. The disadvantages also you should be putting down. So, um, pretty much the reverse of what I could find in the passage, you can use it here. Okay, take your time, read through. You have questions, please ask. Discuss whether or not Guyana would benefit from an increase in the size of the population. To me, this was the most painful and the most nuisance out of the whole lot. Okay, there will be some nuisance questions. Okay, sometimes in the same question, you might have two nuisance questions. Okay, but just got to learn how to mitigate with what you have. Okay, see down here, there's so many things that we could do. um, do they benefit from an increase in the size of population? You can state what is, I think this one is a bit redundant to say what is population and what is increase in size and so on. So I think just start off by saying, it's a term, it's a something that the government would want to evaluate, maybe as a some macroeconomic thing. You can just come in with those kind of very basic simple introduction and get to the point. So now here Guyana has a slow growth in population size. How do we know this? Passage said so. Okay, now, if they have not reached the optimum population, and you could put in the graph here, not that you're going to get marks, but it's good to just show off, okay, in the right way. All right. Now, if they have not reached optimum population, this is beneficial. That means right now the country is underpopulated. So why are you not producing so many goods and services? Why is your GDP so low? Maybe you didn't have enough workers. Okay. So this is something here. And then more labor force, because increase in size of population, right? So remember, labor force is people who are willing and able to work, not people who have already gotten jobs. Okay, so more tax revenue, more output, and economic growth is you can foresee. All right. um, Migrants, now this one's a business studies thing. Those who have taken business studies, you will be able to relate here. um, if you have migrants who are joining the country, they come in with different skills, different knowledge, different backgrounds, different training, and this can help Guyana. Maybe it might be useful in Guyana's scenario. Okay, they can learn and they can share their knowledge and know-how. Okay, what else is there? This is the reverse side of things, birth rate versus death rate. Okay, this one I just picked up from the passage because the birth rate was what? Birth rate was 16.5. Um, can I say anything? I don't know. It's very difficult because I don't have another year to compare with. They just said in 2020, this is the rate, full stop. Okay. So what can I do? I have the birth rate there. I have the death rate. So what did I do was I said, oh, look, the birth rate is exceeding the death rate. There might be higher amount of dependence. Actually, even if you say death rate is more, you can still say there's higher amount of dependence. Uh, no, sorry. Even if you say the old people are more, you can say higher amount of dependence. Okay. So explain why. Don't just say higher amount of dependence and say, yeah, examiner should know. It's so obvious. Don't do that. Okay. Always take the effort. Okay. Mention there are many babies. These people cannot work and cannot generate income. Therefore, it falls on the heads of those who are having these kids. Okay. um, Now, if there's more migrants, see, just now we did it in a positive way. We said migrants, they can bring new skills and new knowledge. Now here it's in a negative way. Migrants, you have to compete for jobs because these guys may be just as good as you are. You understand? Okay. Then environmental pressure, that's like obviously listed there. You must talk about it. See, if you ignore everything else, look at the last sentence. A higher population may affect Guyana in a number of ways, including changing the size of the labor force, one affecting the environment, two. even if you don't talk about anything else, you must talk about these two things. So you must talk about it in the positive light, you must talk about it in the negative light. Both ways also you should discuss. Okay, try it out, guys, and I hope you can see a similar pattern for all the other questions as well. Um, I'm I just want to say I'm very proud of all of you because you all are, I can see so many of you just submitting things to me to mark, and I'm going to I owe about four of you your scripts. I'm going to do that now. Okay. Um, if I lag while I'm talking, please excuse me because I'm extremely tired. I've been at this all day, and I owe you all a few more things. Just please bear with me. Um, just please keep working hard. If you consistently do what you're doing now, you will hit the A. I know some of you are still like, nah, I've done like 5, 6 papers and I still don't get it. You might need to do all the papers. Okay, it it just means that you just got to press a little bit harder. If you press forward, you will make it. Okay, so I'm hoping that this format of sorts can help you, and I'm just hoping that this is going to be useful. um, Please let me know if this is useful. I will be coming up with templates for your essay questions as well. Just give me time. I'm just working on it because I want to present it to you in a proper format so that it makes sense. I don't want to just simply throw things at you. Okay. Right now, stick with what you're doing. You're doing very well. Just please keep it up. Please, please, please keep it up. I'm really touched. It's not so much, I'm proud of y'all, yes, but I'm very touched to see that y'all are responding and responding positively. It really means a lot to me. Thank you all so much. Just keep pressing forward and God bless. I'm hoping to see much better grades and much better scripts in this upcoming exam. Okay. Keep the questions coming. I will answer them. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording now. If you have questions, please ask. Thank you, everybody. Bye. God bless.